the ending of SNAP funding by way of the government shutdown that the Republicans caused. Don't listen to any of their bullshit. It's the fucking Republicans' fault that the government is shut down. But since the government is shut down, people who are enrolled in federal assistance programs are going to lose their federal assistance, like SNAP, like WIC. This is a really interesting development because Donald Trump does have executive power to extend SNAP funding by way of a declaration of emergency. But recent developments have seen, and I mentioned this in the beginning as well, that both chambers of Congress are ready to vote on a bill that would continue funding SNAP through the government shutdown. In the Senate, this is most notable because there are 14 Republican senators who are willing to vote on this. You're looking at a majority, a clear majority of senators who want this legislation to go through. But John Thune wants you to fucking die. Mike Johnson wants you and your family to fucking die because they hate you. They hate you. They think that you, as a low-income individual, are fucking subhuman because you benefit from a social program. That is the mentality that these people have in Congress. And I know this because every fucking step of the way, they look to defund and demonize these incredibly necessary programs.
Republicans Battling Behind Scenes Over Funding SNAP During Shutdown by Alexander Bolton. Cracks are forming in the Senate GOP conference over whether benefits under the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program SNAP should be allowed to lapse this weekend. Republicans have been unified throughout the shutdown in voting 13 times for a House-passed bill to reopen the government, but there are divisions on the SNAP issue, which could leave millions without crucial benefits. Expiration of food assistance funding is expected to impact nearly 42 million Americans across the country, including millions of people in Republican-represented states. I think we got to find some way to get help to 40 million.
Again, they fucking hate you. All of these things that they do, letting SNAP benefits expire, closing rural hospitals, defunding the Department of Education, it overwhelmingly impacts Republican voters. Maybe perhaps not overwhelmingly, but it impacts a large portion of Republican voters. It impacts a large portion of people who voted for Donald Trump. And what sucks about this even more is that these red states, Kentucky, Louisiana, South Dakota, they don't have the state funds necessary to subsidize these programs in the interim. I talked about Kathy Hochul earlier, how she sent me a $200 check. Well, she also just announced that the state of New York will be giving multiple, what is it? It's like a couple, I think it's upwards of $100 million of state funds to keep SNAP alive here in the United States. This isn't a lump sum. This is cumulative. But the red states are incapable of doing that. And they're incapable of doing that because they all receive more in federal funding than they give. The only red state that contributes more in federal taxes than it receives is the state of Utah. Every other red state is subsidized by blue states, by New York, by California, by Seattle, by Massachusetts. That is why these states are capable of extending these programs within their borders. And it's a shame that these people have to have their livelihoods played, or it's a shame that their livelihoods have to play out this way. How the Republicans are using their own voters as political pawns, as if their voters are stupid enough to look at Mike Johnson and Donald Trump and not think that they are the reason that the government is shut down.
Millions of people in Republican-represented states. I think we got to find some way to get help to 40 million people. This Saturday is going to be bad. It is going to be really bad, said Senator Josh Hawley, Republican from Missouri, referring to the expiration of SNAP funding this weekend. Hawley has introduced a bill, the Keep SNAP Funded Act, to provide funding to provide uninterrupted SNAP benefits, retroactive to the start of the shutdown. The legislation already has 14 Republican co-sponsors, a healthy fraction of the Senate GOP.
I'm interjecting here. To date, Kathy Hochul has committed $95 million in emergency food aid to help SNAP benefits here in New York State. This is not something that the governor, like Andy Beshear, is not going to be able to do this. And I love Andy Beshear, but this is the reality of the situation. Kentucky does not have the funds available to do that.
Down they blame on Democrats. They think Democrats, in blocking the House GOP funding bill, are the ones to blame for any lapse in SNAP. Vice President Vance told Republican senators at a meeting Tuesday that they should avoid voting on rifle shot bills to fund different parts of the federal government, such as SNAP, during the shutdown. Republicans want the pressure to be on Democrats to end the shutdown. Democrats say they blocked the GOP legislation because they want subsidies under the Affordable Care Act that are set to expire at year's end to be extended. Senator Lisa Murkowski, Republican.
The government is shut down because of healthcare and the Republicans' extermination of healthcare here in the United States. The Democrats are not going to vote for something that doubles or triples healthcare premiums across the country. They're not going to do that. The Affordable Care Act makes healthcare more accessible and a bit cheaper for people. And the Republicans are looking at this conservative healthcare framework, because that's what Obamacare is, and saying that, no, that's actually too much. Mike Johnson thinks that you should pay more for healthcare. He does not think that you're being extorted enough by your insurance company.
Says she wants to keep SNAP benefits flowing during the shutdown, even though the looming lapse in food assistance funding is putting tremendous pressure on Senate Democrats to vote for a clean, continuing resolution to reopen government. I would like to figure out a way to make sure SNAP benefits continue uninterrupted, she told The Hill. Murkowski said the expiration of SNAP benefits will hit Alaska Native communities especially hard. In many of these smaller villages, the One Village store, 60% of the people who utilize the store are SNAP beneficiaries. And so the impact that we are seeing on Native people around the country when you have a shutdown is something that is not negligible, she explained. An estimated 1 million Native American and Alaska Native people are projected to feel an impact if the federal food assistance funding lapses on November 1st. Senator Susan Collins, Republican from Maine, a co-sponsor of Hawley's bill to keep SNAP funded, questioned the Trump administration's legal interpretation that it does not have the authority to spend $5 billion in the SNAP contingency pool, which Congress created to keep the low-income nutrition program funded in case of emergency. It is a novel interpretation for the department to claim that it cannot use that $5 billion in contingency money to help with SNAP benefits, she said, referring to a memo circulated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA. I do not think this was a USDA opinion. I really think it was imposed by OMB, and we have been having discussions with OMB's attorneys, she said, referring to the Office of Management Budget, which is led by Russell Vought.
Donald Trump has the executive power to extend this funding. He simply doesn't want to. Donald Trump and the Republican Party want all low and middle income earners to fucking die. They do not give a fuck about any of us. They don't give a shit about you unless you're a multimillionaire who can just throw money at them like they're a fucking disgusting stripper. It's so insidious and it's so disingenuous, because this administration will do fucking cartwheels to pass legislation and to commit crimes that they're not allowed to do. Donald Trump's mind basically functions like this: I'm not able to give all of these poor people more money so that way they can feed themselves, but I'm able to constitutionally and unilaterally drop a bomb on Venezuelan fishermen. This is like, we just do not exist in reality anymore.
Bill that she wants to vote on Hawley's bill to fund SNAP benefits during the shutdown. Other Republicans who have sponsored Hawley's bill are Sens. James Langford, Oklahoma; Marsha Blackburn, Tennessee; Bernie Moore, Ohio; Kevin Kramer, ND; Bill Cassidy, Louisiana; Katie Britt, Alabama; John Cornyn, Texas; John Husted, Ohio; Dan Sullivan, Alaska; Roger Marshall, Kansas; Cynthia Lummies, Wyoming; and Shelley Moore, Capito, West Virginia. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican from South Dakota, initially was open to the idea of voting on rifle shot bills to fund distinct parts of the government and ease the pain of the shutdown on millions of Americans. He scheduled a vote last week on a bill to pay active-duty military service members, air traffic controllers, immigration and customs enforcement agents, and Transportation Security Administration employees, for example. Democrats blocked that bill in a 54-45 vote, though 3 Democrats, Senators John Fetterman, Pennsylvania; Raphael Warnock, Georgia; and John Ossoff, Georgia, supported it. Since then, Thune has turned against the idea of voting on bills to open up different parts of the government or fund key priorities during the broader shutdown. Thune on Thursday poured cold water on the idea of voting next week to keep SNAP benefits funded. "I think the vote needs to be on opening the government," he said Thursday when asked whether he would rule out a vote on Hawley's SNAP bill. Senate Republican sources say that Thune changed his view after it became increasingly clear that the White House and members of his own conference did not want to ease the political pressure on Democrats to end the
It's funny that John Thune is butthurt because Democrats didn't vote for his Gestapo funding bill, and instead is now turning around to poor people and is like, sorry, you can't eat because these woke and gay Democrats don't want ICE to go around and fucking kidnap people. It's also really disgusting that they would lump air traffic controllers in with ICE and with other military personnel. I didn't even know that air traffic controllers were considered military personnel. Like, they should be getting paid. They should be getting paid. There are other government employees who should be getting paid, but not ICE, because fuck ICE, and because Kristi Noem deserves to go to fucking prison just like Tom Homan does. Why? Like, it's mm, mm.
Vance told Republican senators at the weekly Senate Republican Policy Conference lunch that they should stay away from the rifle shot bills to fund SNAP and other priorities. One argument he made is that if any of those bills pass, it would put pressure on Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican from Louisiana, to reconvene the House in Washington to take up Senate-passed legislation, which would undermine the Republican strategy of isolating Senate Democrats, according to GOP senators who participated in the meeting. Thune had already backed away from scheduling a vote on funding SNAP benefits during the shutdown when his leadership team met in his Capitol office on Monday. "We will have a conversation with our members about what steps they want to take moving forward, but my view is what it has been from the very beginning, and that is to pay SNAP recipients, open the government."
I'm laughing because the entire Republican Party is just full of fucking pussies, bro. They know that they're the reason the government is shut down. And JD Vance is saying, but what if Mike Johnson gets pressured to do his job and open the government? Oh, sometimes I think life would be better if JD Vance was just in a propeller hat all the time, because maybe he wouldn't be such a fucking scumbag if he had a little bit of joy in his life. Yes, the idea is to put pressure on Mike Johnson to fucking bring the House back together so that way the government can reopen, so that way people don't fucking die, and so that way government employees can go back to getting paid. But JD Vance does not give a fuck about any of that. All he cares about is doing everything in his power to consolidate power for Donald Trump. And they think that the government being shut down makes it easier for them to do that because they don't have all of these hurdles in their way.
"It is not complicated," he said. Other Republican senators are backing Thune and the White House's strategy by warning that passing legislation to fund SNAP benefits next week will likely make it easier for Democrats politically to let the shutdown drag on. "It lets some air out of the bubble too much," said one Republican senator who requested anonymity to discuss internal strategy. Maximum pressure to reopen the government is what I think is the most effective. We are still on our position of open the government, it is easy. But the GOP senator acknowledged, it is really sad that you are leveraging young mothers who cannot feed their children. Senator
Bro,
Tom
come
Tillis
on, dude. Like, every Republican is a schizophrenic. They're all hallucinating all the time. It is literally their fault that young mothers and their children are not able to fucking eat. If reopening the government is so easy, why don't the Republicans just do it? It really is that easy. All they have to say is we will not make healthcare more expensive. All they have to say is that they will not kick 14 million people off of their healthcare. But they can't do that. Do you know why? Because they think that Medicare and Medicaid are fucking immoral. They hate that these programs exist. They hate that poor people exist and have to use these programs. That's it. That's it. They're just a bunch of rich, out of touch assholes.
from North Carolina said the Senate should pass appropriations bills to fund the Department of Agriculture through fiscal 2026 instead of a stopgap measure to fund SNAP. We have got bills passed out of committee that address this. Why would we start with some sort of stopgap? I understand what Josh is doing, but we have appropriations bills that have reported out of committee on a bipartisan basis that we can work on that would not only address SNAP, but take this out of the scope of the next, continuing resolution CR, he said. I think the better strategy is to say, get the CR done, he added, referring to the House-passed continuing resolution to reopen the government. Thune on Wednesday objected to a request by Democratic Senator Ben Ray Lujan, New Mexico, to pass a Democratic bill to fund SNAP and the Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children by unanimous consent. The GOP leader accused Democrats in a fiery floor speech of playing political games.
Oh my
We are
God.
29 days into a Democrat shutdown, and the senator from New Mexico is absolutely right. SNAP recipients should not go without food. People should be getting paid in this country, and we have tried to do that 13 times, and you have voted no 13 times. This is not a political game. This is real people's lives that we are talking about, Thune said, his voice rising to an angry shout on the Senate floor.
John Thune, do you think that people deserve to get healthcare? Apparently not, because you guys are still fucking adamant about continuing with dismantling the already shallow healthcare system that exists in this fucking country. It's always the Democrats want to play politics. Meanwhile, the Republicans have been playing fucking politics since before the shutdown even began. John Thune is getting mad on the Senate floor. Like, spare me the crocodile tears, buddy. I don't believe that you give a fuck about any of this. If you were earnest about it, you would have Congress reconvene. You would pressure Mike Johnson to help bring Congress back into session. But you're not doing that. And then you have Republicans who are criticizing Josh Hawley for doing what is actually the right thing to do by saying that it's going to give the Democrats a political it's going to give the Democrats a hand up in this political battle. You said it yourself. People should not be used as political pawns, and yet the Republicans are playing chess by them fucking selves, using all of these people as political pawns.
Votes on a clean continuing resolution to fund the government through November 21, and Democrats have blocked it every time, arguing it fails to address rising health care costs.
Because it does. Because it does. But then John Thune would be like, actually, no, I want the healthcare costs to be higher. I want all of these people who live in rural America to not have access, to not be able to go to a hospital. I want all of these people in South Dakota, all of these people in South Dakota who voted for me to represent them in Congress. I want to piss in their fucking mouths. When they have a stroke, where are they going to go? If they have a heart attack, where are they going to go? You think they'll be able to afford to drive 30 minutes to the nearest hospital? Like, what are we doing? Man, this Republican Party is so depraved. They're so inhumane. Their existence in and of itself is immoral. They are full. The whole party is full of demonic individuals who seek to inflict pain on the very people who vote for them. This government shutdown exemplifies that, perhaps more so than any other instance within the last couple of years. This government shutdown is in furtherance of perpetuating, it's furthering the already disastrous healthcare crisis in rural America. And the Republicans are content with that. When you guys go to the polls in 2026, if we are fortunate to have midterm elections at this time next year, remember this. Remember the words that I'm telling you. But more importantly, remember the actions of your elected officials and how they fucking betrayed you.